If I was a good host, I'd do our opening in Gullah, but I can't. Maybe our guest can. Who is he? You'll meet the author coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at the community room of South Carolina Bank and Trust in Murrells Inlet. We're focused on the history of the Gullah people. And we're visiting with the author of 2 books about the subject, Mr. Thomas Pyatt. Good morning, Mr. Pyatt.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Nice to be here.
What about this 7 a.m. on a Friday? What about this South Carolina Bank and Trust building? It is beautiful.
It's very nice. Very nice.
It is fancy. Thank you for coming in early.
I enjoyed coming this early. Sure did.
Absolutely. And it's so amazing to think about this very broad topic and having the author of 3 books who's got a 4th book on the way, and 2 of which are about the Gullah people. It's fascinating.
Yes, I retired in 2002, so I had to do something. I didn't want to just quit, just relax and take it easy. So I've been planning on doing this for quite a while. And since I've retired, I came back down to just document some of the thoughts and experiences I've had as a child, because my father was born and raised on Sandy Island.
Your father was born and raised on Sandy Island. Probably
yes.
A lot of our viewers may not be familiar with Sandy Island. We're sure going to get into that.
Yes, it's just below Brook Green Gardens, only about 25 miles away from Myrtle Beach, on 17 South, going down. And so he was born and raised over there in a little village called Annie Village, and the Annie Village was named after his mother, my grandmother. And
Annie Village was named after your grandmother.
Yes,
that's
my
fascinating.
father's mother. Yes, that's how they did it back in those days. And actually, half of the village, my grandmother's sister lived in the other half of the village, and they were both widows. Their husband had already died, so they were the matriarch of the village. And my father was born and raised over there, and he worked over there as a child. His father died when he was 13.
Is that right?
Yes, so he went to work at 13, and he moved to Conway, where I was born and raised in Conway. He left Sandy Island about in the 30s, 1930, maybe 35, 38, only there. And so we came to Conway. He worked in Conway. And he bought a house in Conway, 1946. He built a house in Conway. He worked in the Wilmington shipyard during the war years. So
is that right?
yes. So he was able to save some money and get buy a house there. So we grew up in Conway, and I went to school in Conway. But in the summertime, since my mother and my father wanted to work, and we were young kids, so we couldn't really stay home all day by ourselves.
Right.
So it was very convenient for him to send us to Sandy Island for the summer.
Is that right? So you were over there during the summertime?
Yes, as a young kid. Actually, probably in 1949, 50, 51. That's a long time ago, before you were born. But it was really nice in those days, because we'd take the Greyhound bus from Conway all the way down to Brook Green Gardens, 17, and get off in front of Brook Green Gardens, walk through Brook Green Gardens. There was an old boat dock on the back of Brook Green Gardens. They only had rowboats in those days. You paddle them across, or you row them across the river.
Right.
So we'd get in there, and my uncle and my cousin would row us across the Waccamaw River. It was a slow ride back in those days, no motorboats.
Oh, yeah.
And so the boats were real small. You sit in the boats almost like you really on a piece of cardboard just floating across the Waccamaw River.
No.
Yes.
Wow.
And we'd go to the old boat dock, which was really just a little east of Annie Village. So we'd get there, and we'd take out our groceries and whatever else we had, and walk from boat dock all the way to Annie Village, which was about not quite a quarter of a mile.
How large is Sandy Island physically? And when you speak about the village, you mean the village of?
Annie Village. That's just one settlement on the island. There's actually 3 settlements on the island, 3 Gullah settlements on the island. The main one is actually Mount Arena, which is right. There's a new landing to come across the St. Allen. Now it's right down from Brook Green Gardens. You go down a little bit, then you take the St. Allen Road. Then you go down the road about 3 miles, and you get to the landing.
Right.
I think they kind of built a little. They cut out a creek that leads toward the Walkmore River.
Right.
So it's about about a mile and a half, 2 miles south of Annie Village. That's Mount Arena, the main settlement.
Say that again. That's Mount Arena.
Mount Arena.
Mount Arena.
Right,
Okay.
which is the main settlement. That's where everybody goes over there now. Because the old boat dock that I used to go to, it's overgrown. It doesn't exist anymore. And so we go to the new boat dock now, Mount Arena, and we park our cars at the landing. Okay, we get on the boat. Now we have motorboats.
Right.
So it's a lot easier.
A little easier than rowing across
right.
In the summertime.
We get over there quicker now. You just go across, and my cousins now, they live at Mount Arena, which is right by the Walkmore River.
Right.
They grew up in Annie Village, which is about a mile and a half just north of there, to the east. And so what I did, I tried to document what I did as a kid and show the good times that I had over there. Because as a kid, we didn't really have to work that hard. We helped the adults as if they needed help, but they did all the work pretty much. They took care of all the livestock. And in those days, the livestock, the cows and the hogs and whatever could roam around on the land and graze out there. But now you can't do that anymore.
Really?
It's all privately owned now.
Oh, yeah.
Well, not privately owned, but St. Allen's about 12,000 acres. And
I was going to ask, it's that large, 12,000 acres?
About 12,000 acres.
Well, that's pretty good size. How many is that? I'm not good with square miles, but that's pretty big.
I think they say it's about 4 miles wide and 7 miles long.
Is that right?
Yes. But the thing now is that the state of South Carolina owns a little over 9,000 acres.
Of the 12?
Yes. So it's really it's just preserved now. The state of South Carolina owns that. They did it to mitigate the wetlands when they were building. Was 31. So I think they said they paid like $10 million, $11 million for the island, and then they saved like $60 million on the construction costs because they had to set aside the wetlands. So now 9,000, I think it's 9,164 acres are set aside, for the people of South Carolina.
Sure.
But the other portion is the
or the 3 settlements you were
3 settlements. And the Gullah people owns, I think they at one time owned about 300 acres. It's maybe a little less than that now because there's really only like 110 to 130 Gullah people over there at this point in time.
110 to 130 who are living there full time now.
Right. Yes.
For a viewer who hadn't been down there before, now when you were traveling down there as a kid, as you said, you went through Brook Green Gardens. Was it Brook Green Gardens then?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I know they were celebrating. I guess they're celebrating the anniversary recently, and it may be a 75th or so anniversary. So I guess it.
Right.
So you had good access through Brook Green Gardens back then.
Oh yes.
That's tremendous.
Yes. In fact, Brook Green Gardens was the home of some of the rice plantations along the Walkmore Neck, the Walkmore River.
Right.
And Brook Green Gardens, it was, I think that was founded by Archer and Anna Hyatt Huntington.
That's exactly right.
And they built the old St. Allen School over there in the 1930s.
Is that right?
Yes. The building still stands today. It serves as a library now. They're using it as a library.
Is that right? So
Yes.
now the children get to school by, I guess they use the...
They have a school boat. In fact, the only school boat in the state of South Carolina that's owned by the state of South Carolina is the St. Allen School boat. They call it the Prince Washington.
The Prince Washington.
Prince Washington.
That's fascinating.
It is.
Something a lot
It
of
is.
folks probably don't know about.
No, I think there's another school boat in the Fosky Island, but
Uh-huh.
I think that's contracted out.
Is that
But
right?
the school boat here is owned by the state of South Carolina.
That's
It
fascinating,
is very
Thomas.
much. It really is.
As you imagine and think back to, so there's 3 Gullah settlements.
Yes.
Is that
just
correct?
three-
There
just
on
three.
Sandy Island, but there's many more Gullah people in the state or in the country than
Yes.
folks would imagine.
Yes, yes. And that's what I tried to do in my second book, the Gullah history along the Carolina Low Country.
Yeah, let me hold that up. Gullah history along the Carolina Low Country. Can you
Uh-huh.
see that okay? That's
Yes.
just a great shot there. And, of course, that's your second book.
Yes, yes.
And, of course, both your first book, The Gullah People of Sandy Island, which I have here, The Gullah People of Sandy Island, that first book.
That's a lot of that is about my personal experiences on the island growing up.
That is
And,
fascinating.
I take you back over like almost 6 decades from the
Now,
time.
not to date you, that's right. Not to figure out how old you
Right.
are, but you've given it up a little bit
Right,
there. Yeah.
right. Yeah. I think that's one of the main things I wanted to do, just to document everything that was back there and to show
There's
what
some
kind of
magnificent
changes.
pictures in here as I was going through the book early this morning.
Mhm.
You've got a lot more pictures than the last couple of books, but this still had quite a few pictures, which was fascinating. The Sandy Island school boat
Mhm.
leaving Mount Arena and crossing the Waccamaw River
Yes.
to return to the Sandy Island landing. It is amazing. Are these all pictures that you took?
Yes. Over the years, as I went over there for reunions and different things, I'd take my video camcorder and take pictures. Then I'd come back home and run it through my computer and just print
Mhm.
it out.
That is
So it
incredible.
worked out
Of
really
course, some
well.
of these photos here, I don't know if folks can, you obviously can't zoom in on them except to see that there are photos there and people relaxing at Mount Arena. It's amazing, and of course the depth of some of these. What's it like to have now written 3 books and be working on a 4th? That's pretty intimidating.
Yes. What I wanted to do was document my experiences and some of the history of the area, especially along the Carolina Low Country. But I wanted to do it in a creative and innovative manner
Yeah.
that hasn't been done before. And so I just kind of was doing experimenting a little bit and coming up
Mhm.
with some different things. And I wanted to do everything myself. I wanted to write it myself. I wanted to edit it myself. I typed everything myself, and I couldn't print it myself, but so I used a printer.
Yeah.
But the thing I did is that I went on the internet and got a lot of information about book publishing.
Good.
There's a lot of information online that you can with respect to the book trade. It tells you
Right.
how to get started. It tells you how to get everything you need, the copyrights. It tells you how to get your barcodes. In fact, the barcodes, a lot of the stores, they won't let you sell them unless you have a barcode.
Is that right?
That's correct.
That's-
And the government issues barcodes. I guess it's a government agency.
Right.
And so I went on the online. I got information online that tells you to go to isbn.org or whatever
Right,
it is.
right.
And so you get everything there, and then just order my barcodes online from this company in New York. And they
And
send
then,
it
of
back
course,
to me
you
as a
provided
check-
with your
check.
printer so that they can get them on all the codes, or do you have to stick those on separately?
No, these are. You can get them to stick them on separate if you want to, but
Right.
what I do, I get them as a master, as a JPEG, file, color file.
Sure.
And what I do, I just put them on the black and white art that I send
Right.
to the printer, and they print them on just like they're printing it, just like part of the page.
That is tremendous.
It's really
to
incredible.
really
what they can
speed
do.
things along
Yes.
when you're checking out at Barnes & Noble
Yes,
or Walden
yes,
Books
yes,
or
yes.
Books A Million or
That's
so
correct.
many of the places I saw online. You've got a ton of stuff. Amazon.com has
Yes.
all of your works listed. It's pretty exciting probably to be associated with Amazon.com or BN.com
Yes.
or BooksBam.com. I
Yes.
mean, it must be exciting.
It was very rewarding to do this because when I first went into the workforce, I was in the workforce like 42 years. I was basically in the 20th century technology. We had no credit cards, no ATM machines, no electronic banking, no cell phones,
Right.
no computers. We had the manual typewriter when I first started working
Oh,
in the
yeah.
government. We did reports by typewriting.
You
Had-
worked with the government.
Yes, I worked for the government. Yes,
Mhm.
and so nowadays you can do everything just on your computer, pretty much.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
that's what I've done.
That's fascinating. Share with viewers if they were learning or just hearing that phrase Gullah.
Mhm.
A lot of folks in our viewership in the PD in southeastern North Carolina
Mhm.
may not be familiar with the Gullah people. What exactly does that mean, Gullah? Where does that come from, and how large is the population statewide?
Okay, the Gullah people came from West Africa when the slave ships came over. A lot of them were. A lot of the ships were unloaded. Some of the people unloaded at the port of Charleston. In fact, they've got records that show about 40% of the blacks in America today can trace their roots to the Charleston seaports.
40%.
About 40%.
Wow.
And once they came to the Charleston seaports, what they did is they took them to some of the plantations along and isolated barrier islands along the Carolina coast. And so to work the plantations, a lot of the plantations were rice plantations. They were good at producing rice. They produced a rice culture that was so great they called it Waccamaw gold, and they exported it back to
I've
Europe.
never heard that.
Yes, Waccamaw
Wow.
gold. Right.
Waccamaw gold, and it went back to Europe.
They exported some back to Europe.
That's
yes.
fascinating.
Yes. But the Gullah people is they came from West Africa, and they were placed on the isolated islands, and so they were able to retain their distinct culture and heritage, and by being isolated.
Mhm.
Okay, the Sea Islands and the coastal areas of Carolina, Florida, and Georgia is where they reside. In Florida and Georgia, they're called Geechee, and in the Carolinas, they're called Gullah.
Yes, I've heard that. You
Right.
said in Florida and Georgia they're called Geechee,
Right.
and in the Carolinas they're called Gullah.
Gullah, right. But there's really no difference between us. I mean, I don't know why that came about, but
Uh-huh.
that's just a distinction.
So you'd be a Gullah.
Yes, I'll be a Gullah. I'll be what they refer to as I think it's a freshwater Gullah, because I don't really live on the island,
Right,
and
right.
I'm on the mainland.
Yeah, that you are. But of course there's a little dialect difference there. Oftentimes we'll hear, and remember
Yes.
there was a TV show, maybe a
Right,
kid show on
right,
Nickelodeon. Was that about?
Right. The Gullah language is really a type of a mixture, I guess you would say, a mixture of African and American language or dialects.
Uh-huh.
But it's really like a Sea Island Creole that's passed down by the Sea Island slaves. It's like a Creole, so it's a kind of a different. I don't really speak Gullah yet, but I'm in the process of learning.
Are you really?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Who
I
is
do.
teaching you?
I'm gonna get online and do.
Is that Berlitz? Can you listen on tape? Or?
I can do that too.
Can you
Yes.
really?
And I have some friends who speak it very well. My cousins on the island, I can understand a lot of words really, but I usually
Mhm.
don't. Can't speak it correctly, so I don't try it.
So you can't give us a little primer?
I can give you two words that I know. Is it TENGKGAWD? Thank God.
Thank God.
Thank God. Thank God.
Right.
So, yeah.
Wow. Oh, come on! You can do a little more. No, that's. I'm sure it is. It
there's
requires quite a bit
well,
of training.
New is NYEW. I think that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got a few other words too that. In fact, I got a piece of some research I'm doing now on some of those.
This is for your fourth book, or just in general.
In
to
general,
make sure, right?
in general.
Sure.
Actually, I've got 3 other books lined up, but my next one's going to be a lot of it's going to be non-secular, so I may or may not put some of that in there.
Right.
But I've got 2 others. I'm going to try to do one on the historic scenes in the counties, which is Horry County and Georgetown County,
Oh yeah.
and some of the scenes that really don't make it on the National Historic Register places, I'm going to put them in my book and have it like a collector's color edition.
Oh boy, that'll be tremendous.
Yes, I'm gonna work on that. In fact, I'm working on it now. I just haven't got it all together yet.
Mhm.
But by early summer, I hope to have the next one out.
Of course, for this area and for our viewers in the PD and southeastern North Carolina and coming down here in Horry and Georgetown County, clearly, when they think of the Gullah people, oftentimes they're focused on Sandy Island. That would be one of the bigger, or are there larger enclaves of Gullah people in the let's say in this area?
Yes, there is. I did my first book on the Gullah people, Sandy Island, because that's my roots are big.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
But my second book, my last book, Gullah History Along the Carolina Low Country, that pretty much takes us all down from Wilmington, North Carolina, all the way down to Florida, Jacksonville, Florida. And I
Mhm.
start with Atlantic Beach, which is really which was known as the Black Pearl.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of history there also. I used to go there as a kid in the summertime. And I go from Atlantic Beach to Myrtle Beach, the hill on Myrtle Beach, Carver Street, which was a place where a lot of the big name black stars, music stars came by in the early days.
Is that right?
Yes, they were coming down from New York to the Florida, so they stopped on the hill and Carver Street. I think Charlie's Place was one of the main places on the hill where they could play music and have a bar there also. And they'd come on down to.
Sounds like you thought about doing a book on that as well.
Yes, I've got.
I can see it in your eyes.
Yes, there's a lot of things out there that I'm going to keep going because now that I've found something that I can do
Sure.
for 10, 20 years,
Yeah.
until the rest of my retirement. So I'm going to just keep going.
Just
And
keep
on and on.
knocking out more books.
That's right. I'm keep
Now,
going.
of course, all of them tie into something you're really interested in. Could you ever, if someone said, we want a book written about this, do you think now that you've knocked it down so well, you could help someone else get books published? That may be an interest in business there to try to help people learn about publishing books.
Yes, that's the book publishing industry is very interesting. I mean, there's a lot to learn, and I'm still on the learning curve.
Right.
And you've got there are companies that will help you, but I want to learn as much as I can by myself so that I can really know what they're telling me and kind of check out what they're telling me.
Right.
Because a lot of times it's easier and it's cheaper to do it yourself if you can do it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I have time. I'm retired, so there's no reason why I can't just go ahead and do the research
Sure.
and take my time and do it myself. But in fact, I wanted to do it a long time ago. But when I first started working in San Francisco, when I graduated from high school, that was San Francisco.
You left high school and went to San Francisco.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
and I studied art. I studied art at the Academy of Art.
Mm-hmm.
And so back in those days, I knew I wanted to document the history of Sandy Island, especially.
You knew that even 30-some years ago.
Yes, yes.
That you had someday wanted to document the history of Sandy Island.
Right.
And it took you this long.
Well, yes,
the government
yes,
had to.
yes. What happened was I'd come back. I went to the Academy of Art in I think it was in the late '60s in San Francisco. That was when it was on Sutter Street.
Right.
Like I'm sure Sutter Street's kind of a famous street.
Mm-hmm.
And I think now they have a big office on 2nd Street, just down from Market Street in San Francisco.
In San Francisco.
Right. But I haven't been there in about 4 or 5 years. You know, I go out there every other month, but I usually end up going to the South Bay, San Jose.
You go out there every other month, really?
Just about every other month. Right.
What for now?
I have family out there, and my fiance's out there, and so I'm retired, and I just didn't go on a lot of trips when I was working.
Yeah.
And I'd come back and visit my parents. So now that I'm retired, I got time. I just go.
Sure.
And so I get.
Are your folks still living?
No, my parents have passed.
Oh, I'm
And
sorry.
so that's one of the reasons I came back. To kind of keep with the house.
Sure.
And but back in those days, I'd written a paper on Sandy Island when I was going to City College of San Francisco.
Right.
And I had a good paper. I had by typewriter. And so in one of my many moves in my apartments, it got missing.
No.
But before it got missing, I turned it in as a class project, and I got an A on that one also. And so that was really good. So I had to rewrite it over. But and now I got everything on computer, and everything's on disk now, so it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
Back in those days, we didn't have that.
We've just got a couple of minutes, Thomas. How different is Sandy Island now than 50 years ago?
Okay, back in those days, we didn't have electric lights, didn't have running water. We had deep wells, and at night, the only light we'd have was like the stars and the moon. And now they have, I think it was 1967, they got electricity came to the island.
67.
Yes,
Right.
and 2001, I think it was, they had running water. They have all the modern conveniences of we have on the mainland now. They have electricity, telephones, televisions, computers, internets, running water. They have everything now that's very modern. But the problem is, once you inside your house, once you come out of your house, looking on your front porch, you don't have your car in the garage because your car's across the landing.
Yeah, there's no car there. There's no cars.
There's just a few vehicles that
Right.
people have, but for the most part, there's no paved roads. The roads and the pathways are still the sandy pathways.
Mhm.
There's really no shops over there. My cousins have a gift shop, a general store, a Pyatt general store,
Mhm.
but there's no police station, no fire station. There's a volunteer fire station with my cousins on that one, but there's really nothing. It's almost like it was 100 years ago.
Is that right?
Yes, it's
That
very
is-
pristine, very lovely, very
Folks
nice.
think about the development boom along the Strand, and I guess that probably hasn't had a big impact.
No, especially since the state of South Carolina, bought the island as a preserve. So hopefully that won't come down. I think a lot of the senior citizens over there, they really appreciate the state and the people of South Carolina buying it, so they can enjoy their later years in peace and tranquility.
Those are great words. Thomas, thanks so much for
Thank
being
you.
with us this morning.
We really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Great.
Stay tuned to more Carolina People with author Thomas Pyatt coming up next. Can you imagine popping out your first book, The Gullah People of Sandy Island? And that's only 15, 16 months ago. Since then, he's knocked out 2 more, and he's working on his 4th. The excitement of that, just an author for the first time, but the opportunity to share with folks the history of the Gullah people. Now, you heard Thomas talk about it from the Wilmington area down to Jacksonville, Florida. the impact of those folks on communities and on communities on those persons. It's incredible to think about. Take time. You can check out 3 different websites, either tjpyatt.com, Sandy I as in sandyisland.com, that's sandy.i.com, or you can visit amazon.com, a website you've probably heard of, and type in Thomas Pyatt. Take a look at some of his amazing books online, get a little short summary of the books. There's also a very exciting digital piece you could pull down, which is Wisdom of the Water's Edge. Wisdom of the Water's Edge. You could buy it for 49 cents to get a good short story, a good opportunity. It's exclusive to Amazon. Take a look at Amazon.com, type in Thomas Pyatt, and go ahead and take a look at Wisdom by the Water's Edge. Beautiful piece. Thomas Pyatt, thanks so much for being with us.